Hi guys, and welcome along to my first video on the YouTubes for Wormpaints. My name is Kyle and I am who is behind Wormpaints and doing paint jobs for various different race cars, mainly on the iRacing software package, and also a few others over time, and even some real life cars. What the idea of this video is I'm going to get a few people to send me through some of their skins that they've done, and I'm basically going to load them up, point out a few areas here and there that I personally would change, and then I'm going to go into the PSD or the TGA file that they've sent me, make a few changes, and basically give my impression of what I would change and how I'd like to see the car. Now, this is by no means a critique. Like anything in the arts, everything is subjective to do with the paint schemes and that on cars. So I'm not here to say that anyone's doing anything wrong or right. All I'm going to talk about is things that I personally would change for my own tastes. And that's all it is. And hopefully some people can learn a few bits and pieces, and I hope that in the long run I learn a few bits and pieces too, because we've all got our own style, which is the great part about it. It's really good when you see some cars out on track, and before you even see the little tag on the car and who did it, you can identify whose paint job that is. There's a few guys out there that have real unique styles. Matt from Dirt Division, for example, you can pick his cars a mile off. Bob King also, they had their own style. You can pick them, and you know, what's the point in trying to change everyone to look the same? We want to see different looking cars out there. So I'm hoping here we can, I can give some people some new ideas, some different ways to do things. At the moment, we're currently looking at one of my cars for my team, Pace Syndicate. But I'm going to load a car up from Daniel Coxon. It's going to be the V8 Supercar, one paint that he did. Dan was awesome enough to shoot me over a layered file. It looks like he's been using GIMP. I've just converted over to Photoshop because that's what I use. So there might be a little bit lost in translation there. I literally just downloaded GIMP for the first time, and it's the first time I've ever used it. So I don't know that much. I pretty much just opened up his file and exported it to a PSD, and we will go from there. Now, I was just going through the layered file, and one thing that Dan has already got over me is he's very tidy in his layering and labeling his layers. So it's one thing that I am absolutely terrible at and need to get better at. But anyway, I will load up his car, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so we've loaded up Daniel's skin here, and it's green, so automatically there is massive points in my book because anything green is good. Now, on first impressions, this is a prime example of a pretty simplistic looking base design that looks very effective, just by going to the effort of placing these logos and everything around. I mean, if you have a look at real race cars, and you'll find this is what I base a lot of my stuff on. I try to make my cars look somewhat realistic, as far as a presentation point of view for your sponsors and that kind of thing. So I think less about an attractive base design with some sponsors put on it, and I think more about pushing the logos and representing the brands on your car, which is exactly what a real life race car is about. So that's my angle on things, and so that's what I'll pretty much base a lot of this stuff on. So some of the first things I notice on here are some of the logos around are actually quite hidden. The placement is fine, it's just they don't stand out. So that's probably one of the few things I'm going to sort of attend to first. And I'll just I'll see how well I can get around here. I'm actually just going with the in-house cameras, but there's a few things. Let me just skip back out of here and so I can point the mouse around, and let's just change this key step factor back to 1. There we go. We can move around a little bit faster now. So the Wheelie Bins Mayhem Republic logo on the side here, that yellow is a good contrast against the grey. It really it stands out quite well. I'm just wondering if a stroke might make it pop a little bit more. We might try that. But my biggest concerns are the Boss surveillance system across the front here. If we zoom back out, it's quite at a loss. And let's see, imagine he's on a broadcast event, he's coming through. Most cameras aren't going to get much closer than about this. It doesn't stick out well enough to really decipher what it says. So that's another thing we'll try and make pop as well. The rest of the stuff is pretty good. The Mayhem down here, that sticks out alright. Is that Govey Warehouse? Yeah, that looks like that's sort of hidden in there a bit. If I'm at that close and I can't read it, then people have no chance elsewhere. The Limelight Motorsport down here works really well. We got the Nick and Dan here again. It's just this black line running through there. Masks a bit of the pop from the logo. So again, there a stroke could be super helpful. Apart from that, the wing here, Rhino Hire sticks out like dog's balls. The machinery equipment hire is hidden, so we'll try and get that across a little bit better. And the same, the West End top looks pretty good. The Flat Chat podcast, that all sticks out really well. Of course, the banners and everything, plenty of pop there. The base design, I don't think I'm going to touch at all. I can't see anything that's out of alignment or anything like that, so that's pretty good. We'll see how we go as we go along. So yeah, I will get stuck into it now, and we'll see what difference we can make. Alright, so we're into Photoshop now, and just having a quick look through the file, and it looks like Daniel's using some shading layers and the metallic layers. So there's plenty of these around, and I highly suggest people check them out because it does make a real subtle and nice effect on some of the cars on the track. So Cameron Colby of Colby Wormpaints has a few available, and also some great templates to use as well, which helps align your paintwork over various layers. And if you look in the forums, there's posts by like Matthew Nethercoat and a few other things, guys out there that are doing these metallic layers, and it's definitely worth checking out because it can add that little bit of pop to the skins in the end. But what I'm going to do is go through and add a few of them strokes and that I was talking about to really make those sort of logos pop. So we will get in there now. I'm just going to turn all these shadows and highlight layers off. Has he got them in a... I'll just do that. Go through. I've got to remember to come back and turn them all on in a minute. So we'll turn them all off and get down to the base. And we will work from there. Alright, so I'm going to start with the Boss surveillance systems here. Now, in most cases, I don't like to change logos because generally when you get given a logo by a company, that's their corporate branding. You don't want to change too much. In this case here, I would either go a stroke on it, so we can go like a nice sort of white stroke around it to sort of make it stand out. Strokes are one of them funny things. They can a nice thin stroke with a drop shadow sometimes can look really nice and classy. You go a little bit too thick with it and it just looks a bit tacky. Yeah, you just got to find that perfect level, and you just got to look out in areas like this, like obviously in the logo there's a target there. If you do a thinner stroke on it, you can see the white actually affects the logo and changes the whole look of that target. So you either want to have it full enough to take up that full back, or you actually want to go in and add a layer back in behind there. But what I'm going to try here is to do that, and you can see the surveillance systems, which is sort of that goldy sort of colour. Sort of gets lost in the white a little bit even. So what we can do there is we can actually excuse me a second, press the right buttons. Let's just select them pixels for a second, and I might just make that black if I can. So all of a sudden that sort of pops out a little bit more there. We'll see how that looks on the car in a second. Otherwise I might even look at putting like a white bonnet or something back behind it just to make them pop a little bit. The other thing too is, I'm just going to jump back on the picture of the car here. You can see that stretches across the bonnet a long way, which is sometimes great and it pops out, but when you do have these black lines like that, that's can interfere with it a little bit. And that's what I'll be looking at in a minute. I might even resize that to be a little bit smaller. So we'll just see how that looks in a minute. But I'm just going to tidy up a few little things now, and I'll come back in a second and we'll go through them over the car. Alright, so I've made a few changes, and this is just to show how sometimes simply a little pop of white or a stroke can help push the brand across. So I'm definitely not 100% sold on this. I'm going to change it again, but this is just to show you. So here we changed the Boss surveillance system. We've given it a white outline. You can see here what I was talking about with the stroke inside the logo, those little green 4 dots. They shouldn't be there. We should clear them out. But I also changed that to black, which helps that stand out a little bit. What I think I'm going to do here is actually make this bonnet white, and I'm going to try and tie it in with something at the back as well. It's just to make these brands pop. I've also done the stroke around the Boss surveillance systems here. That stroke to me looks way too fat, so I'm going to tidy that up a little bit more and make that sort of stand out. Things we did at the back, I put the stroke around the Nick and Dan. It automatically makes that pop, loses that conflict there. I'm probably going to change all of these again, and I'll show you in the final product, probably to tie it more in with the colour scheme. But here as well, because it was on the grey, I just made this white so you could actually see it, because beforehand it was black, you couldn't see it too well. What I was talking about with the wing, I've just moved that Rhino higher up a little bit more so you can see the machinery equipment higher in there. Not that you're going to get a lot of that in view from, you know, from far away. You can actually see the Rhino higher a little bit better though. But when the car's right up behind them, they can read it well. And on the top of the wing, all I did there, it's a bit hard to see there, but if I change that to static and let's do that, the West End Mazda up here, all I did there was I just moved the Parramatta and Blacktown. I gave it a little bit more spacing between it because beforehand they were a little bit crowded in there. Alright, so that's where we're sitting there. Once again, I changed this logo down the front here with the white around it. To me, that stroke's still looking a little bit too fat. I'll fix that. And also the Wheelie Bins Mayhem Republic on the side, I put a grey stroke around there, which tied it in with the grey along here, and a drop shadow. Drop shadow can sometimes look completely wrong on a paint scheme, and sometimes with this it works. I find your fonts like this that are sort of a little bit wacky, you know, a bit, so there's no uniformity between the lettering, which is obviously the feature of the font. Strokes and drop shadows on them really help them lift off. Otherwise, they get lost in all other curves around the car. So that's a bit of a tip there. All right, well, I'm going to do my final little makeover with this one. I'm probably going to change a little bit to the color scheme in that as well, and we'll pop back in a second. Okay, so I've spent a little bit of time on the PSD file now, changing the bits and pieces. I'll just run over quickly what I've done. I thinned out the stroke on a lot of the logos to stop them looking so bulky. The obvious thing that I've changed is I've added the white on the bonnet here and across the roof. I've also done it on the back of the boot to help tie it in. It was looking like it needed something else, so I added a white down here on the skirts to help tie that in. On the Wheelie Bins logo, I've brightened that up as well so it stands out, and then made a few little alterations here and there as well. So we'll have a look at it in game now. Let's skip to that. We'll just go around the car. So you can see here with the white bonnet, the Boss logo sticks out a little bit more now. Ideally, I would like to have it inside of the strokes there. It would look a bit cleaner, but it kind of gets a little bit too small. I think maybe this could really sort of get a bit better look by this design sort of cutting away at the bonnet there and opening up the white, or the full bonnet being in white. But I'm not trying not to change the overall design that much. Down here in the front, I've made that a darker grey to tie in with the sides. I made the mirrors yellow as well to give it another punch of yellow. The back wing I changed to white as well to help tie that white across the roofline. And apart from that, didn't really change too much more. So yeah, that's how she looks now. And you'll see floating around the track, all the logos of that sort of stand out a little bit more. So I'll just put it into the TV view and flick the replay on for a bit. But yeah, you can see the wheelie bins pops a little bit more now. The sort of lime greeny yellow that it was before had a little bit of khaki-ness to it, and it sort of got lost in that grey. So that pops a little bit more. And the white sort of pushes that Boss logo as it's standalone. It doesn't get lost in the grey, again, like it did before. So yeah, that's what I changed up. Obviously, that's what I'd do. There was nothing wrong with how it was before. I just found that some of the logos did get lost in it. And yeah, this is what I would change. So I'll go through and I'll take a couple shots with the JRT camera just to show the difference. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so here we're looking at the first side-by-side comparison. Obviously the top one is the before, the bottom one is the after. So you can see the difference between the stroke on the wheelie bins logo here and the colour difference, and obviously all the white differences. The little Gove Warehouse logo down here you can now see. One thing I didn't mention before, the Boss logo back on the back pillar actually moved back a little bit, because you see on the top one it's actually right on the edge of the pillar. So we just gave that a little bit of clearance, and then obviously this white line down here. And one thing I did do on this is actually remove the shading. That was unintentional. I just forgot to turn it back on, and I'm not going to go through now and retake all the photos. But there's not that much difference. You can just see there's a little bit sort of a nicer sort of shine on this, which would look nice on this one, and I probably would do that in hindsight. But yeah, I got the yellow mirrors, that kind of thing, and so I'll just switch to a rear view of it and we'll have a look at that as well. And here is the view from the back. Not too much is different. Again, it's just that white line down the bottom, the white on the boot there. You can see that wheelie bit, and that pops out a little bit more now, and the stroke there. So yeah, that's that one all done. I'd like to thank Daniel for sending me the skin, and also sending me the layered one as well and letting me play with it, because yeah, it makes it a heck of a lot easier if I get the layered skin as opposed to the TGA, especially when changing things like stroke layers and odds and ends like that. But yeah, that's that. Let me know what you thought about the video. If you've got any opinions on which one you like better, whether it's Daniel's or mine. Both of them sort of, I don't know, they appeal to different tastes, I think, and that's the whole idea with this. If you've got one you want me to have a crack at, look for my page on Facebook under Wormpaints, and get in touch and send me a copy of preferably your PSD file, so I can get into the layers, but I can do it with the TGAs as well. And yeah, if you've got any other little hints and tips, things that you'd do, leave them in the comments. Yeah, thanks for checking it out.